Locked out, a 97-year-old woman sent to the hospital finds she can't go back to her senior apartment.
The state said the provider broke the law, but then changed its mind. Fox 6 investigator Brian Polson shows you the closed-door agreement her family calls a betrayal and why it could be part of a nationwide problem known as hospital dumping.
There you go.
If home is a place where memories are made,
It's nice here, right?
perhaps it's a blessing. Elaine's ability to retain them is failing.
You like to play bingo? I do. Yeah.
Don and Elaine Benz moved into their first senior apartment together in 2011. But a few years later, Don passed.
Oh, what's the matter?
And just before the pandemic, Elaine's family decided she needed more assistance.
It was just hard for her to manage without more help.
So Bill Leaders and his sister Diane Roth had their mother transferred from independent living to assisted living at Regency Senior Communities in New Berlin.
I said, please don't move my mom again because I think it will kill her. She said, oh no, we won't have to move her.
Our Regency administrator promised in writing Elaine could stay as long as their license allowed.
We can only accept, admit, and retain a resident that we are licensed to provide care and services to.
Mike Pachowski represents the assisted living industry in Wisconsin, which includes more than 4,000 facilities with varying levels of care.
We want to keep them in their home for as long as possible.
Regency is a residential care apartment complex, which under state law can only provide up to 28 hours of nursing services per week.
They said that she needed 28 hours a week of care. She doesn't get that now. She didn't need it then.
Medical records supplied by the family show Elaine's health was gradually declining last fall. She was weaker, more agitated, and using a wheelchair instead of a walker. But her children say they were not prepared for what happened next.
It was completely out of the blue.
I was panicked.
On October 11th, 2021, Elaine suffered a fall, her fourth in a little more than a year. She went to the hospital and spent 16 days in rehab. But it wasn't until the day before she was supposed to come back home that the rehab center delivered the news. Regency was refusing to take her back.
It was horrifying.
I said, what am I going to do?
Roth scrambled to find her mother a new place to live, and Leaders filed a complaint with the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, or DHS.
I think she became more work than they wanted to provide. She did not become more work than what they were licensed to provide, which is what they alleged. But I think she just became more of a burden, and they thought they would rather not deal with it.
State law requires assisted living facilities to give residents at least 30 days notice before kicking them out, unless there's an emergency.
It should be pretty rare that emergency happens in that way.
Kim Marheine is a supervisor with the Wisconsin Office of the State Ombudsman, which advocates for long-term care residents.
Our staff every day field complaint after complaint.
Over the past 6 years, they've received more than 1,200 complaints about discharges and evictions, more than any other complaint category. But Marheine says their ability to intervene has limits.
We have a lot of autonomy, we have some authority, but we have no ability to compel a provider to take somebody back.
What happened to my mom happens all the time.
And it's not just happening in Wisconsin. A federal inspector general's report finds discharges and evictions have been the #1 long-term care complaint across the country 7 years in a row.
My mother was left in limbo.
Esther Riva's 85-year-old mother, Eva Koken, was locked out of a nursing home in Washington State during a stay in the hospital.
I think it was just an opportunity to finally, be rid of my mother and the family. Just too much trouble.
So Riva brought her mom home to Milwaukee, where she died in August.
She wants me to continue working on this.
Now Riva, Roth, and Leaders are trying to raise awareness of a practice that's putting vulnerable older adults at risk.
It's called dumping.
Hospital dumping.
This is hospital dumping, and it's a cynical way to do business.
Eric Carlson is attorney for the nonprofit Justice in Aging, and he says facilities may see a trip to the hospital as an opportunity to rid themselves of a challenging or less profitable client.
I think too frequently the nursing facilities see this as a free shot.
But he says there's one sure way to stop it.
Levy significant fines.
When a state inspector reviewed Elaine Benz's case, she found the care needs that Regency used as evidence of an emergency termination were the same care needs Elaine Benz required before she went to the hospital. In other words, there was no emergency. So the inspector issued a pair of violations and $1,500 in fines. But 2 months later, her superiors pulled a complete 180.
The state didn't have the guts to stand by its frontline staff.
After meeting privately with Regency's owner, Pro Healthcare, the state agreed to rescind the citations. Even scrubbed the field inspector's original findings from a publicly accessible report.
In our opinion, the state of Wisconsin betrayed us.
According to a settlement agreement between Pro Healthcare and DHS, the decision was based on additional information provided with the appeal. What information?
Nothing new came out. They just changed their mind.
If anyone could find out, it's leaders. He's not just Elaine Benz's son. He's president of the Wisconsin Freedom of Information Council.
I mean, I could not have done any of this.
Through an open records request, leaders obtained hundreds of pages of internal DHS emails and memos, including this one. It shows the head of the division responsible for inspections was surprised by the state's sudden reversal. But leaders found no explanation of what swayed the department to reverse course. So in August, he sat down with DHS Assistant Deputy Secretary T.R. Williams.
Additional information was provided.
And recorded the conversation.
That additional information was provided.
Time and time again.
Because of the new information that was provided.
She said the same thing.
Answer to it.
Is that there's additional information.
Yeah.
But you haven't shown me it.
And I did it. And you won't, because we gave you the reason why. That additional information wasn't anything that we could provide to the two of you.
A DHS spokesperson now tells Fox 6 physical therapy notes from a third party reinforced the decision to rescind the citations, but still won't say what those notes revealed or how that made the situation an emergency.
If they could plan a little bit better on the front end.
Marheine says providers can avoid this kind of crisis with better planning.
Communication, just better communication.
And federal regulators say stronger enforcement when violations occur.
The message to facilities should be that you will pay a price.
After all, there's no place like home.
I still have some stuff here.
Yeah, you're going to
stay here.
You stay here.
Even when home is hard to remember.
Pro Healthcare declined our request for an on-camera interview, instead sending a brief statement that reads in part, Regency Senior Communities is not a licensed nursing home and is not able to provide higher levels of care. Regency residents sometimes reach a point where they require care beyond what Regency can offer. This can be a difficult time for the resident and family, and we support them however we can. You can read the full statement along with many of the documents we relied on for this report at fox6now.com. Brian Polson, Fox 6 Investigators.
If you or a loved one needs help with a discharge or eviction from a long-term care facility here in Wisconsin, the Office of the State Ombudsman would like to hear from you. We do have a link to the Ombudsman website, along with a toll-free 800 number, an email address, and much more. You can find it all at fox6now.com.